Hello, my beautiful audience. Welcome to another episode of Pass the Time Podcast. I'm your host, AJ Wozniacki, and as you already know, there's no better way to pass the time than by listening to Pass the Time Podcast. We have a ton of stuff today on the show. We're going to be reading Jeff the Killer by, I think I'm pronouncing this right, but might not be, by Sesseur. It's Sesseur. I think it's Sesseur. I don't know. If I'm not pronouncing it right, then I guess you can give me shit. We're also going to be talking about a certain book I started reading. That'll be at the end of the show. It's a very scary book, so you'll be excited for that. But first, let's get into our horror fix.
Horror fix.
The first thing I wanted to talk to you about on today's Horror Fix is a movie coming out on March 27th on Crackle. It's Dead Rising Watchtower. Of course, it's based on the original Dead Rising video game, but I'm very excited for it. I watched the trailer. The trailer wasn't too intriguing. It didn't look like the best movie, but it had Rob Riggle in it, and he's playing a funny role, which he should be, so that looks pretty good. It's also starring Jesse Metcalfe. You might know him from John Tucker Must Die. He played John Tucker, of course, and Megan Ori, who was in the TV show Once Upon a Time. So this movie has a pretty simplistic plot. It's just a group of people fighting to survive in a zombie-infested town. But I believe they take the characters from the video games, which makes sense. And I don't know, it looks like a watchable movie. It's only being released on Crackle. It's just like a Netflix original, but Crackle TV original. So I don't like that. I'll probably be able to find it'll probably be on YouTube or something soon. So get excited for that, coming out March 27th on Crackle. Now on to video games. I know I've been playing a lot of Dying Light, which is of course developed by Techland, but now I'm going to talk about another Techland video game. It doesn't have a release date yet. It's a digital-only game, which I'm not a big fan of that, but this of course is Hellraid. So in this one, it kind of reminded me of like Elder Scrolls or Skyrim. That's the kind of way it looks. So it's like more of a hack and slash first-person game. You could play single player or up to 4-player co-op. It looks pretty cool. The trailer got me pretty excited for it. You get to join a group of fierce combatants to repel the demonic invasion and close the gates of hell. So anything where you're closing the gates of hell, pretty cool. You get to, in the trailer, it shows you killing a lot of these skeletons coming at you, so that's always fun. You get to customize your weapons, your character, all that stuff, which everybody likes that stuff, all the type of power-ups you can do. So I think this is going to be a great one, except I don't like the fact it's digital only. I like being able to put a game into my system, but whatever. It comes out for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. They don't have a release date, at least I haven't found it anywhere. It's supposed to come out 2015, so let's hope it does. Also, a little funny tidbit is that this game was actually supposed to just be released as a game mode in the original Dead Island game, which was also developed by Techland, but I guess it was so good that they decided to make it its own game. So that's been your horror fix for today, but now it's time to get into the creepypastas. Today we have a story that deserves its very own episode. This is Jeff the Killer, written by Sesseur. Excerpt from a local newspaper. Ominous unknown killer still at large. After weeks of unexplained murders, the ominous unknown killer is still on the rise. After little evidence has been found, a young boy states that he survived one of the killer's attacks and bravely tells his story. I had a bad dream and woke up in the middle of the night, says the boy. I saw for some reason the window was open, even though I remember it being closed before I went to bed. I got up and shut it once more. Afterwards, I simply crawled under my covers and tried to get back to sleep. That's when I had a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. I looked up and nearly jumped out of my bed. There, in the little ray of light illuminating between my curtains, were a pair of 2 eyes. These weren't regular eyes. They were dark, ominous eyes. They were bordered in black and just plain out terrified me. That's when I saw his mouth. A long, horrendous smile that made every hair on my body stand up. The figure stood there, watching me. Finally, after what seemed like forever, he said it. A simple phrase, but said in a way only a madman could speak. He said, "Go to sleep." I let out a scream. That's what sent him at me. He pulled up a knife, aiming at my heart. He jumped on top of my bed. I fought him back. I kicked, I punched, I rolled around trying to knock him off me. That's when my dad busted in. The man threw the knife. It went into my dad's shoulder. The man probably would have finished him off if one of the neighbors hadn't alerted the police. They drove into the parking lot and ran towards the door. The man turned and ran down the hallway. I heard a smash like glass breaking. As I came out of my room, I saw the window that was pointing towards the back of my house was broken. I looked out to see him vanish into the distance. I can tell you one thing, I will never forget that face. Those cold, evil eyes, that psychotic smile, they will never leave my head. Police are still on the look for this man. If you see anyone that fits the description in this story, please contact your local police department. Jeff and his family had just moved into a new neighborhood. His dad had gotten a promotion at work, and they just thought it would be best to live in one of those fancy neighborhoods. Jeff and his brother Lou couldn't complain though. A new, better house? What's not to love? As they were getting unpacked, one of their neighbors came by. "Hello," she said. "I'm Barbara. I live across the street from you." "Well, I just wanted to introduce myself and introduce my son." She turns around and calls her son over. "Billy, these are our new neighbors." Billy said hi and ran back to play in his yard. "Well," said Jeff's mom, "I'm Margaret, and this is my husband Peter, and my two sons, Jeff and Lou." They each introduced themselves, and then Barbara invited them to her son's birthday. Jeff and his brother were about to object when their mother said that they would love to. When Jeff and his family are done packing, Jeff went right up to his mom. "Mom, why would you invite us to some kid's party? If you haven't noticed, I'm not some dumb kid." "Jeff," said his mother, "we just moved here. We should show that we want to spend time with our neighbors. Now we're going to the party, and that's final." Jeff started to talk, but stopped himself, knowing that he couldn't do anything. Whenever his mom said something, it was final. He walked up to his room and plopped down on his bed. He sat there looking at the ceiling when suddenly he got a weird feeling. Not so much a pain, but just a weird feeling. He dismissed it as just some random feeling. He heard his mother call him down to get his stuff, and he walked down to get it. The next day, Jeff walked down the stairs to get breakfast and got ready for school. As he sat there eating his breakfast, he once again got that feeling. This time it was stronger. It gave him a slight tugging pain, but once again he dismissed it. After he and Lou finished breakfast, they walked down to the bus stop. They sat there waiting for the bus, and then all of a sudden, some kid on a skateboard jumped over them. Only inches above their laps, they both jumped back in surprise. "Hey, what the hell?" The kid landed and turned back to them. He kicked his skateboard up and caught it with his hands. The kid seemed to be about 12, 1 year younger than Jeff. He wears an Aeropostale shirt and ripped blue jeans. Well, it looks like we got some new meat. Suddenly, two other kids appeared. One was super skinny and the other was huge. "Well, since you're new here, I'd like to introduce ourselves. Over here is Keith." Jeff and Lou looked over to the skinny kid. He had a dopey face that you'd expect some sidekick to have. "And he's Troy." They looked over at the fat kid. Talk about a tub of lard. The kid looked like he hadn't exercised since he was crawling. "And I," said the first kid, "am Randy. Now, for all the kids in this neighborhood, there's a small price for bus fare, if you catch my drift." Lou stood up ready to punch the lights out of this kid's eyes when his friends pulled a knife on him. Tisk, tisk, tisk. "I had hoped you'd be more cooperative, but it seems we must do this the hard way." The kid walked up to Lou and took his wallet out of his pocket. Jeff got that feeling again. Now it was truly strong. A burning sensation. He stood up, but Lou gestured him to sit down. Jeff ignored him and walked up to the kid. "Listen here, you little punk. Give back my bro's wallet or else." Randy put the wallet in his pocket and pulled out his own knife. "Oh, and what will you do?" Just as he finished the sentence, Jeff popped the kid in the nose. As Randy reached for his face, Jeff grabbed the kid's wrist and broke it. Randy screamed and Jeff grabbed the knife from his hand. Troy and Keith rushed Jeff, but Jeff was too quick. He threw Randy to the ground. Keith lashed out at him, but Jeff ducked and stabbed him in the arm. Keith dropped his knife and fell to the ground screaming. Troy rushed him too, but Jeff didn't even need the knife. He just punched Troy straight in the stomach, and Troy went down. As he fell, he puked all over. Lou could do nothing but look on in amazement at Jeff. "Jeff, how'd you—" That was all that was said. They saw the bus coming and knew they'd be blamed for the whole thing, so they started running as fast as they could. As they ran, they looked back and saw the bus driver rushing over to Randy and the others. As Jeff and Lou made it to school, they didn't dare tell what happened. All they did was sit and listen. Lou just thought of that as his older brother beating up a few kids, but Jeff knew it was much more. It was something scary. As he got that feeling, he felt how powerful it was, the urge to just hurt someone. He didn't like how it sounded, but he couldn't help feeling happy. He felt that strange feeling go away and stay away for the entire day of school. Even as he walked home due to the whole thing near the bus stop and how now he probably wasn't going to be taking the bus anymore, he felt happy. When he got home, his parents asked him how his day was, and he said in a somewhat ominous voice, "It was a wonderful day." Next morning, he heard a knock at his front door. He walked down to find 2 police officers at the door, his mother looking back at him with an angry look. "Jeff, these officers tell me you attacked 3 kids, that it wasn't regular fighting, and that they were stabbed." "Stabbed, son." Jeff's gaze fell to the floor, showing his mother that it was true. "Mom, they were the ones who pulled the knives on me and Lou." "Son," said one of the cops, "we found 3 kids, 2 stabbed, 1 having a bruise on his stomach, and we have witnesses proving that you fled the scene. Now what does that tell us?" Jeff knew it was no use. He could say him and Lou had been attacked, but then there was no proof that it was them who attacked first. They couldn't say that they weren't fleeing, because truth be told, they were. So Jeff couldn't defend himself, or Lou. "Son, call down your brother." Jeff couldn't do it, since it was him who beat up all the kids. "Sir, it was me. I was the one who beat up the kids. Lou tried to hold me back, but he couldn't stop me." The cop looked at his partner, and they both nodded. "Well, kid, looks like a year in juvie." "Wait," says Lou. They all looked up to see him holding a knife. The officers pulled their guns and locked them on Lou. "It was me. I beat up those little punks. I have the marks to prove it." He lifted up his sleeves to reveal cuts and bruises, as if it was a struggle. "Son, just put the knife down," said the officer. Lou held up the knife and dropped it to the ground. He put his hands up and walked over to the cops. "No, Lou, it was me. I did it." Jeff had tears running down his face. Poor bro. Trying to take the blame for what I did. "Well, take me away." The police led Lou out to the patrol car. "Lou, tell them it was me. Tell them. I was the one who beat up those kids." Jeff's mother put her hands on his shoulders. "Jeff, please. You don't have to lie. We know it's Lou. You can stop." Jeff watched helplessly as the cop car sped off with Lou inside. A few minutes later, Jeff's dad pulled into the driveway, seeing Jeff's face and knowing something was wrong. Son, what is it?" Jeff couldn't answer. His vocal cords were strained from crying. Instead, Jeff's mother walked his father inside to break the bad news to him as Jeff wept in the driveway. After an hour or so, Jeff walked back into the house, seeing that his parents were both shocked, sad, and disappointed. He couldn't look at them. He couldn't see how they thought of Lou when it was his fault. He just went to sleep, trying to get the whole thing out of his mind. 2 days went by, with no word from Lou at the JDC. No friends to hang out with, nothing but sadness and guilt. That was until Saturday, when Jeff was awoken by his mother with a happy, sunshiny face. "Jeff, it's the day," she said as she opened up the curtains and let light flood into his room. What's today?" asked Jeff as he stirred awake. "Why, it's Billy's party." He was now fully awake. "Mom, you're joking, right? You don't expect me to go to some kid's party after..." There was a long pause. "Jeff, we both know what happened. I think this party could be the thing that brightens up the past few days. Now get dressed." Jeff's mother walked out of the room and downstairs to get ready herself. He fought himself to get up. He picked out a random shirt and a pair of jeans and walked downstairs. He saw his mother and father all dressed up, his mother in a dress and his father in a suit. He thought, why would they ever wear such fancy clothes to a kid's party? "Son, is that what you're gonna wear?" said Jeff's mom. "Better than wearing too much," he said. His mother pushed down the feeling to yell at him and hid it with a smile. "Now, Jeff, we may be overdressed, but this is how you go if you want to make an impression," said his father. Jeff grunted and walked back up to his room. "I don't have any fancy clothes," he yelled from downstairs. "Just pick something," his mother called. He looked around his closet for what he would call fancy. He found a pair of black dress pants he had for special occasions and an undershirt. He couldn't find a shirt to go with it though. He looked around and only found striped and patterned shirts, none of which go with dress pants. Finally, he found a white hoodie and put it on. "You're wearing that?" they both said. His mother looked at her watch. "Oh, no time to change. Let's just go," she said as she hurried Jeff and his father out the door. They crossed the street over to Barbara and Billy's house. They knocked on the door, and then appeared Barbara, just like his parents, way overdressed. As they walked inside, all Jeff could see were adults, no kids. "The kids are all out in the yard, Jeff. How about you go and meet some of them?" said Barbara. Jeff walked outside to a yard full of kids. They were running around in weird cowboy costumes and shooting each other with plastic guns. He might as well be standing in a Toys R Us. Suddenly, a kid came up to him and handed him a toy gun and a hat. "Hey, wanna play?" he said. No kid, I'm way too old for this stuff." The kid looked at him with that weird puppy dog face. "Please," said the kid. "Fine," said Jeff. He put on the hat and started to pretend shoot at kids. At first he thought it was totally ridiculous, but then he started to actually have fun. It might not have been super cool, but it was the first time he'd done something that took his mind off Lou. So he played with the kids for a while until he heard a noise, a weird rolling noise. Then it hit him. Randy, Troy, and Keith all jumped over the fence on their skateboards. Jeff dropped the fake gun and ripped off the hat. Randy looked at Jeff with a burning hatred. "Hello, Jeff, is it?" he said. "We have some unfinished business." Jeff saw his bruised nose. "I think we're even. I beat the crap out of you and you got my brother sent to JDC. Randy got an angry look in his eye. "Oh no, I don't go for even. I go for winning. You may have kicked our asses that one day, but not today." As he said that, Randy rushed at Jeff. They both fell to the ground. Randy punched Jeff in the nose and Jeff grabbed him by the ears and headbutted him. Jeff pushed Randy off of him and they both rose to their feet. Kids were screaming and parents were running out of the house. Troy and Keith both pulled guns out of their pockets. "No one interrupts or guts will fly," they said. Randy pulled a knife on Jeff and stabbed it into his shoulder. Jeff screamed and fell to his knees. Randy started kicking him in the face. After 3 kicks, Jeff grabs his foot and twists it, causing Randy to fall to the ground. Jeff stood up and walked towards the back door. Troy grabbed him. "Need some help?" He picks Jeff up by the back of the collar and throws him through the patio door. As Jeff tries to stand, he's kicked down to the ground. Randy repeatedly starts kicking Jeff until he starts to cough up blood. "Come on, Jeff, fight me." He picks Jeff up and throws him into the kitchen. Randy sees a bottle of vodka on the computer and smashes the glass over Jeff's head. "Fight," Randy demanded as he threw Jeff back into the living room. "Come on, Jeff, look at me." Jeff glances up, his face riddled with blood. "I was the one who got your brother sent to JDC, and now you're just gonna sit here and let him rot in there for a whole year? You should be ashamed." Jeff starts to get up. "Oh, finally, you stand and fight." Jeff is now to his feet, blood and vodka on his face. Once again, he gets that strange feeling, the one he hasn't felt for a while. "Finally, he's up," says Randy as he runs at Jeff. That's when it happens. Something inside Jeff snaps. His psyche is destroyed. All rational thinking is gone. All he can do is kill. He grabs Randy and pile drives him to the ground. He gets on top of him and punches him straight in the heart. The punch causes Randy's heart to stop. As Randy gasps for breath, Jeff hammers down on him. Punch after punch, blood gushes from Randy's body until he takes one final breath and dies. Everyone is looking at Jeff now. The parents, the crying kids, even Troy and Keith, although they easily break their gaze and point their guns at Jeff. Jeff sees guns trained on him and runs for the stairs. As he runs, Troy and Keith let out fire on him, each shot missing. Jeff runs up the stairs. He hears Troy and Keith follow up behind. As they let out their final rounds of bullets, Jeff ducks into the bathroom. He grabs a towel rack and rips it from the wall. Troy and Keith race in, knives ready. Troy swings his knife at Jeff, who backs away and bangs the towel rack into Troy's face. Troy goes down hard, and now all that's left is Keith. He is more agile than Troy though, and ducks when Jeff swings the towel rack. He dropped the knife and grabbed Jeff by the neck. He pushed him into the wall. A container of bleach fell down on top of him from the top shelf. It burnt both of them, and they both started to scream. Jeff wiped his eyes away the best he could. He pulled back the towel rack and swung it straight into Keith's head. As he lay there bleeding to death, he let out an ominous smile. "What's so funny?" Jeff asked. Keith pulled out a lighter and switched it on. "What's funny," he said, "is that you're covered in bleach and alcohol." Jeff's eyes widened as Keith threw the lighter at him. As soon as the flame made contact, the flames ignited the alcohol inside the vodka. While the alcohol burned him, the bleach bleached his skin. Jeff let out a terrible screech as he caught fire. He tried to roll out the fire, but it was no use. The alcohol had made him a walking inferno. He ran down the hall and fell down the stairs. Everybody started screaming as they saw Jeff, now a man on fire, drop to the ground, nearly dead. The last thing Jeff saw was his mother and other parents trying to extinguish the flame. That's when he passed out. When Jeff woke, he had a cast wrapped around his face. He couldn't see anything, but he felt a cast on his shoulder and stitches all over his body. He tried to stand up, but he realized that there was some tubes in his arm, and when he tried to get up, it fell out, and a nurse rushed in. "I don't think you can get out of bed just yet," she said, as she put him back into bed and reinserted the tube. Jeff sat there, with no vision, no idea what his surroundings were, and finally, after hours, he heard his mother. "Honey, are you okay?" she asked. Jeff couldn't answer though. His face was covered, and he was unable to speak. "Oh honey, I have great news. After all the witnesses told the police that Randy confessed of trying to attack you, they decided to let Lou go." This made Jeff almost burst up, stopping halfway, remembering the tube coming out of his arm. "He'll be out by tomorrow, and then you two will be able to be together again." Jeff's mother hugs Jeff and says her goodbyes. The next couple of weeks were those where Jeff was visited by family. Then came the day where his bandages were to be removed. His family were all there to see it. What would he look like? As the doctors unwrapped the bandages from Jeff's face, everyone was on the edge of their seats. They waited until the last bandage holding the cover over his face was almost removed. "Let's hope for the best," said the doctor. He quickly pulls the cloth, letting the rest fall from Jeff's face. Jeff's mother screams at the sight of him. Lou and Jeff's dad stare awestruck into his face. "What? What happened to my face?" Jeff said. He rushed out of bed and ran to the bathroom. He looked in the mirror and saw the cause of the distress. His face, it's horrible. His lips were burnt a deep shade of red, his face was turned to a pure white color, and his hair singed from brown to black. He slowly put his hands to his face. It had a sort of leathery feel to it now. He looked back at his family, then back at the mirror. "Jeff," said Lou, "it's not that bad." "Not that bad," said Jeff. "It's perfect." His family were equally surprised. Jeff started laughing uncontrollably. His parents noticed that his left eye and hand were twitching. Jeff, are you okay?" "Okay? I've never felt more happy." "Ha ha 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 ha! Look at me! This face goes perfectly with me." He couldn't stop laughing. He stroked his face, feeling it, looking at it in the mirror. What caused this? Well, you may recall that when Jeff was fighting Randy, something in his mind, his sanity, it snapped. Now all that was left was a crazy killing machine. Too bad his parents didn't know. "Doctor," said Jeff's mom, "is my son all right? You know, in the head?" "Oh yes, this behavior is typical for patients that have taken very large amounts of painkillers. If his behavior doesn't change in a few weeks, bring him back here and we'll give him a psychological test." "Oh, thank you, doctor." Jeff's mother went over to Jeff. "Jeff, sweetie, it's time to go." Jeff looks away from the mirror, his face still formed to a crazy smile. "'Kay, mommy." Ha 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 ha. His mother took him by the shoulder to go get his clothes. "This is what came in," said the lady at the desk. Jeff's mom looked down to see the black dress pants and white hoodie her son wore. Now they were clean of blood and stitched together. Jeff's mother led him to his room and made him put his clothes on. Then they left, not knowing that this was their final day of life. Later that night, Jeff's mother woke to a sound coming from the bathroom. It sounded as if someone was crying. She slowly walked over to see what it was. Then she looked into the bathroom and saw a horrendous sight. Jeff had taken a knife and carved a smile into his cheeks. "Jeff, what are you doing?" asked his mother. Jeff looked over to his mother. "I couldn't keep smiling, Mommy. It hurt after a while. Now I can smile forever." Jeff's mother noticed his eyes, ringed in black. "Jeff, your eyes!" His eyes were seemingly never closing. "I couldn't see my face. I got tired and my eyes started to close. I burned out the eyelids so I could forever see myself, my new face." Jeff's mother slowly started to back away, seeing that her son was going insane. "What's wrong, Mommy? Aren't I beautiful?" "Yes, son," she said. "Yes, you are. Let me go get Daddy so he can see your face." She ran into the room and shook Jeff's dad from his sleep. "Honey, get the gun. She stopped as she saw Jeff in the doorway, holding a knife. "Mommy, you lied." That's the last thing they hear as Jeff rushes at them with a knife, gutting both of them. His brother Lou woke up, startled by some noise. He didn't hear anything else, so he just shut his eyes and tried to go back to sleep. As he was on the border of slumber, he got the strangest feeling that someone was watching him. He looked up just before Jeff's hand covered his mouth. He slowly raised the knife, ready to plunge it into Lou. Lou thrashed here and there, trying to escape Jeff's grip. "Shh," Jeff said. "Just go to sleep." So that's Jeff the Killer by Cezure, and that creepypasta received an 8.7 out of 10 on creepypasta.com. Now, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10 on my scale of creepypastaness, because I know on my initial reading I really love this story. I just wanted to finish it really quick because I wanted to know what happened, and that's how I know it's a good story, when I just need to figure out the ending, and the ending was good, which is a bonus. But the only things I didn't like about this story was some parts how it's written, a lot of grammar mistakes, or kind of just some lines just felt kind of lazy. Like this line here, "A thing of bleach fell down on top of him from the top shelf." I wasn't a big fan of lines like that, and there's a few like that with repetition of words too close together that just, they don't sound good to the ear. But other than that, this was a great story. It was a little bit of a slow build at the beginning, I found anyways, but I liked how it began. I liked every aspect of the story, really. This is definitely one of my favorite creepypastas. It's just after reading it over and over again, I've started to notice a few of the mistakes. But I'd like to see more stuff by this author, so I might have to go look around on creepypasta.com, because I really enjoyed this story, and keep it up. So I just want to give out a shout out to Cezure for, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Cezure? I don't know. But mad shout out because it's a great story. I really enjoyed it. My only advice, keep writing, keep getting better. You're already off to a great start. So that's enough about Jeff the Killer. Now, normally this is the time in the episode where I review a movie, but I didn't watch any movies recently because I've actually been reading a lot more, and I just started the book The Deep by Nick Cutter. Now, I discovered him when he released his book, The Troop. I believe that was last year, and it's one of my favorite horror books of all time. So make sure you check out The Troop if you haven't done that. But this book, The Deep, it's kind of been compared to like The Abyss, kind of like that. It's like on the back actually it says The Abyss mixed with The Shining, and it's pretty close to that. But I don't want to give any spoilers. I'll just kind of talk a little bit about what the book is about. The protagonist is Luke, who you follow, who actually has a brother working on a cure for this disease called the Gets. And the Gets, it's kind of like, it reminds me of The Happening, but this just doesn't suck. The Gets is a disease that makes you forget little things at first, and then you slowly forget bigger and bigger things. It's kind of like Alzheimer's to the max, because eventually you just completely forget how to live, and that's how you die. So by the special request of his brother, Luke is going down to this crazy station they have at the very bottom of the sea, and like the bottom of the Marianas Trench, and it's just really crazy, the story so far. Don't want to give anything away, but they may have found a cure, and it's down there. But what can survive that deep in the sea? I don't know. I gotta finish the book. But definitely check out The Deep by Nick Cutter. Also The Troop. If you don't know who Nick Cutter is, you might have known his other work under the name Craig Davidson. He wrote stuff like Cataract City and a collection of short stories called Rust and Bone, kind of about like street fighting and stuff, which is pretty cool. But he changed his pen name to Nick Cutter for horror books, I guess. And he actually has another one coming out right away, which I'm kind of excited about. It doesn't seem like a horror book. It's called The Acolyte, and it seems like they're delving more into like the problems with religion and stuff like that. And I don't know, it seems kind of like a apocalyptic type thing. I'm not sure, I just read the synopsis, and hopefully that one's good too, because I love me some Nick Cutter. But in the coming episodes, I'll probably do a complete review of the book, a full review for anybody. I will warn for spoilers if you were planning on reading the book yourself, but that'll be coming up in the next episode or two. But I think that's it for today. Hopefully we have another episode before Friday the 13th. We should have one anyhow, but it's kind of funny how we get 2 Friday the 13ths in this year already. I love it because those are the days where I kind of like to binge watch the Friday the 13th movies. Might throw a Nightmare on Elm Street in there just for fun, because love those movies. But I think I'm rambling on a little bit here, so It's time to get out of here. Make sure you like us on Facebook, facebook.com/pastatimepodcast, Twitter @pastapodcast. You can email us at pastatimepodcast@gmail.com. So you can contact me on any one of those, and you can send me requests with what creepypastas you'd like me to read next. And also, if you're an aspiring writer of creepypastas, we're going to be starting a new segment on the show coming up, which will feature fresh faces in the writing of creepypastas. So if you have any stories you want me to read, any ones you've written, make sure you give me a shout at pastatimepodcast@gmail.com, facebook.com/pastatimepodcast, or on Twitter @pastapodcast. I just wanted to thank everyone for listening. If you want to check out trailers for the game or movie I mentioned earlier in the Horror Fix, that's on our Facebook page, facebook.com/pastatimepodcast. And while you're there, why don't you give us a like on Facebook? But I'm sure you've had enough of me, so I'm going to take off.
Stay frightened, my friends.